ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिः यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैर्तुष्टुवांसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति नः इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नः तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुंष्टान् गीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः. So good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, friends. Thanks for joining us for yet another interesting interactive session on Gita Chintana. So today we are doing chapter 18, part B, and Suresh and his team are going to lead the show, as it were. So Suresh, over to you. I will manage the slides from here, and over to you.
Thanks, Madhu. Am I audible?
Yeah.
We'll get started then. Manojavam Marutatullya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanarayuta Mukhyam Sri Ramadutam Shirasa Namami. Good evening, everybody, and good morning to some of the folks, I suppose. As Madhu said, we will now get into the second part of chapter 18, part B, wherein we will cover slokas 19 to 40. If we move to the next slide, Madhu. So in today's session, we will talk about the three gunas. We've dedicated the entire session just to discuss about the impact of the three gunas. As we move to the next slide, before we do that, I thought it will be good to just revise and what we did in part A. Some of the elements that we captured in part A where we needed to interpret any of the Shastras very carefully and not be carried away by superficial meanings. That the jivas are bound by the three gunas. We also said action was inevitable, and the path to liberation from bondage is by performance of duties, and these duties need to be discharged without attachment and expectations of outcome. Every action has 5 components, and that I thought was a very important message, which we perhaps need to contemplate and think for every activity that we do. Even for today's session, if Adhisthana, the platform, is the Sahiti platform, the main Kartru is our teacher, Madhuji here. The Karana, the materials perhaps are all of us, the sentient and the non-sentient, the internet, the laptop, some of us who have got our roles to play. But just having material is not enough. Pruthak Cheshta becomes extremely important, that each one of us have to do our duties or assigned roles we have to play in the proper way. The internet has to work, the electricity has to work, but that still doesn't ensure the intended outcome, because that's dependent on Daivam, his grace. And Krishna has very nicely summarized it in 927 for us. Yat karoshi, yadashnasi, yad juhoshi, yad dadasi, yat tapasvi, whatever that you do, Kaunteya tatkurum madarpana, do it all as an offering to me. On the next slide, Madhu, if we could move to the next slide, please. Yeah. So this is where, this is how today's session is structured. Obviously, as we know, chapter 18 is the last chapter, which is a summary. There's a lot of information that will surface. The intent is not to go into detail of this because most of it has already been covered in detail in various other classes that we have had, but more as a compilation of information in one place and then we will touch upon a few things. Any questions? Please feel free to pass them over on the chat message, and we'll try to address them as we go through the session. We'll take the answers to the questions towards the end of the session. So on the next slide, why this thought of having to dedicate one full session on the three gunas per se? As Bananji says, perhaps Bhagavad Gita is one of those texts which gives the most extensive discussion on the role of the three gunas. 3.5 is something that we talked about last time when we said action is inevitable. But the second line there is what perhaps anchors today's conversation, that the action is one is compelled to act by the qualities born out of material nature, the three gunas, sarvaif prakriti jair gunaihi. Krishna also warns us that even the Vedas talk about the gunas and their outcomes, the material fruits that the one can obtain in pursuit of the achievements or the actions that we do based on the three gunas. But then it tells us rise above it and contemplate on higher values in life. So some fundamental questions as we go deeper. Where and how do these gunas come about? What role do they play? And why should one try to understand the nature of these three gunas? On the next slide, we'll take you back to the slide that we had seen during creation. Fundamentally, there are two elements, the Kshara and the Akshara Purushas. Madhu, request transition. Yeah. So basically two components there, the Kshara Purusha and Akshara Purusha. And interestingly, last week, we just saw Manu, despite calling his guru as Amruta, Bhasmantang Shariram, even he, Chaturmukha, the Vayu, Matarishva has to shed his body before going to moksha. So 15-16 tells us about the Kshara and the Akshara Purusha. There are two this ones. And as the first moment of creation, Lakshmi in her three forms of Shri, Bhu and Durga creates the Sattva and the Rajas. So obviously anything else that comes below Sattva, Rajas and Tamas is under the influence of these three gunas, which is very well illustrated in 1840 that we will touch upon later, where Krishna says there's nothing, be it in this world or in the world of the gods, Devata, etc. There's no one who is beyond the influence of these three gunas, except of course the ones who were responsible for the creation, which is Brahma and Vishnu. What follows that is very well explained in 13.6 when he says Mahabhuta, Nyahankaraha, Buddhira, Vyaktameva, all the elements that I think are very beautifully captured in that one shloka. And we need to remember what Krishna tells us in 17.3, that Shraddha Yoyat Shraddha Sayeva Saha. The question comes is, if everybody is under the influence of these three gunas only, why is there so much of differentiation? Why is there hierarchy? Why are we so different? That is where the answer says is that it's because of the Swarupa Bhuta Parinama or the Antakarana Parinama, which Krishna refers to in 17.3. If we move to the next slide then, as to the question of why should one contemplate and understand
Suresh, we lost you briefly. Your internet went off, so we're going to come back again to that slide.
Yeah. So on the next slide, on the question as to why we should contemplate and try and understand these three gunas. Just the previous one, Mal. So just the previous slide, Mal. Slide 5.
Can you see this slide? I'm transitioning, Suresh.
So, can you hear me, Madhu?
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you, Suresh. We've lost Suresh, I think, briefly. Let's just pause and see whether he'll rejoin. Can you guys hear me? Pragnesh?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
He's joined again. Yeah.
I think Suresh's internet is playing up.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
You can hear.
Suresh, yes.
Yeah. So the previous slide, Madhu. I mean,
Yeah, this one?
so, yeah, this one we talked about this, and the next one perhaps is as to what's the role of these three gunas, which is basically binds us all, and you have seen this in Shat Prashna Upanishad with the 15 Baileys, which the jiva is bound with, and the spiritual effort is to try and get out of these bondage. And Krishna in chapter 10 tells us that this effort he does, for those who pursue this effort, he does bless us with knowledge that will enable us to transcend. And on the next slide, as to the reason as to what's the benefit of knowing about these three gunas, this is where Krishna tells us that Prakrute Kriyamanani Gunaik Karmani Sarvasha. I mean, all activities that are carried out are a resultant of these three gunas. So if we take Prakriti as Jada Prakriti, the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas are the three gunas. And if we take it as Jiva Swabhava, we have Uttama, Madhyama, and Adhama Purushas, which is again depending on the nature, the Sattva and Rajas, Tamas components in the Jiva Swarupa. 7:12 to 7:14, Krishna tells us that he tells us about reality, that those of us, all of us who are, within the influence of these three gunas are not able to comprehend anything which is beyond these three gunas. So we reduce even the Lord himself to be somebody who has these three gunas, but it's important to realize that the Lord is beyond the three gunas. And that's exactly what he says in the 14th chapter, where he says that realizing that the only material cause are the three gunas, and they are the Abhimani Devata of it is Maya, Lakshmi herself. And getting out of that, the only way to get out of that is total surrender to the Lord. So it's important for us to understand the role and the nature and the role, the doership for us to continue to pursue on this path of liberation. I found a very interesting shloka in Shvetashvetara Upanishad, which I thought I'll relate in the next slide, which is Ajo Mekam Lohita Shukla Krishna Varnam. So there's a goat, it says, which is of three colors, which is black, white, and red. Vahi prajaha srijamanam sarupaha. And the only thing it's doing is it's going on procreating, it's creating more goats, which are again of these three colors. Ajo hyasho jushamana ishnushete. There's one goat which, despite knowing this, is still so much into this goat that it's simply lost in its goat. But there is one which is, walking away from this particular goat. So I thought this was a very good, interesting slide to tell us what this entire thing is about. But I would pause here if there's anybody wants to share some thought on this slide.
Suresh, Anand has got a question. I can understand transcending Rajas and Tamas. Why transcend Sattva? Anand, can we just hold on to the question until the end? We can maybe take it up at the end. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So, so this seems interesting that one goat who is continuously procreating with the three gunas it probably represents most of us who are entangled in the daily rigmarole of life, and we cannot detach ourselves from all the actions that we are taking, whereas the goat that is walking away is what we should be aiming for, is to try and detach ourselves from the results of the actions.
Or the three gunas.
Or the three gunas, yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks, Shishraji. I mean, absolutely. So
Can I
that's the
also
message.
give an input, Sureshji?
Please, please, please.
So that's a very wonderful example. I think the goat which may be walking away may also be indicative that this goat has been able to differentiate itself from those gunas. So all the other goats kind of identified those gunas as being themselves. So they have got into all those three gunas and they are soaking in those three gunas. But maybe this goat at one point of time realized that I am not those three gunas. Those three gunas are just flowing through me, and has been able to develop this third person perspective, which is actually a form of, awakening, and is being able to move away from it. I don't know. That's my perspective, but.
No, thanks, Shishraji. Makes
So,
sense. Absolutely.
Suresh, whilst we're here, maybe Anand also wants to come in because it seems relevant with this conversation. Anand, go for it.
Sure. Anandji, please.
No, I think I just put a question in the chat box.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Anand, so I'll repeat that question again, Suresh. Anand is asking, I can understand transcending Rajas and Tamas. Why transcend Sattva?
Yeah. So I think very, very briefly to touch upon that is Sattva only comes into existence because there is Rajas and Tamas. We have the concept of day because there is night. If there was no night at all, we wouldn't have the concept of day. So therefore, if we have to transcend, we need to transcend both of them. If there's no Rajas and Tamas, there would be no Sattva also. So once that's the way at least I have understood, and maybe Madhu, towards the end, you could actually round it off.
Yeah, sure. Pragnesh has made a valid point here. Pragnesh has made a valid point. Gunatita is defined as the one who has transcended all three gunas.
Yeah. So thank you. Thanks for the inputs. I found this, as a good, I thought it would be
Anand.
interesting to just touched upon this.
Anand has
And we move to the next slide quickly. Sir.
Madhu, I can wait until the end, but I'm still not clear why transcend Sattva. I can understand it. Gunatita means transcending all the three gunas.
Yeah. Okay, sir. We'll take it up at the end. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
So quickly on the next slide, then I've just made it as a summary of chapter 14 and 17. One could easily put in elements of chapter 16 also. A question does come, which needs to, same thing which I had said earlier, is why differentiation. So very clearly there is a dominant and a recessive aspect here. When one of the three gunas is dominant, the other two get into the recessive mode. And that's the way it's there more for reference. We're not going to go through this slide at this point of time. So I just thought I put together these few slides as an introduction going into the today's contemplation per se, and over to Prakashji, who will take us through shlokas 19 to 22. Prakashji, please.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskar to everybody. So basically the 19th shloka is touching upon the three things: jnana, karma, action; knowledge, action; and the karta, the actor. These three, there is a gunabedataha, trideva gunabedataha. So the three types of knowledge, three types of karma, three types of karta, the actors. Why it is three means because of guna beta, the inherent intrinsic quality is making it threefold. So where it is told, Krishna says guna sankyane. So it is from a text called guna sankyana. Even Madhvacharya quotes that. So basically, it is coming from a scriptural source that these three things are having three different because of the inherent characteristic. Now, I am going to tell that you please listen, and the main topic is now the three jnanas: Satvika jnana, Rajasvika, and Tamasika jnana. So the first Satvika jnana, the shloka is Sarvabhuteshu yenekam bhavyam avyayam ikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tajnanam vidya satvikam. So this is what he says. So now we have to go the details. The devil is in the details. So bhuta means Srimad Acharya says that is that which exists. So that which exists means it can be a sentient or a non-sentient. And sarvabhuteshu, that is in all the sentient and insentient beings, there is a vibhakta, there is a classification. So that means it says that there is a inherent difference between all the different kinds of sentient and insentient things, I mean beings and things, and there is also a hierarchy in them. So that is why he says that it is in locative case, sarvabhuteshu, in saptami vibhakti, in locative case. So there is an inherent difference between this the sentient and insentient things, I mean sentient beings and insentient things, and there is a hierarchy and there is a difference. But there is next comes say that ekam bhavam. So bhavam means Vishnu. That means he is there, ekam bhavam. That is the only one, or the one thing. What he does is he pervades everything. He pervades everything. The one Lord, he pervades everything. Ekam bhavam Vishnu. And he is also Avya. There is no Vaya, means there is no transformation or no decay or there is no change. Why? Because he is there in all these things, but yet, if that entity, for example, Jiva, birth, death, or the Jada, the insentient, it gets destroyed or something like that, is there in that Adhisthana, but nothing happens to him. So that's why he is Avyaya. And Avibhaktam. Avibhaktam means he cannot be, there is no difference in him. Intrinsic difference is not there in him. For example, it takes many avatars, Krishna, Rama, etc. There is no difference in any of these things, neither in his avatars, in his gunas. So it's a swagata bheda varjata. There is no intrinsic difference within him in any of his rupas, namas, etc. So that is why if somebody has a knowledge like this, that is a sattvika knowledge. Tajnanam vidya satvikam. So it is actually, this is referring to a knowledge. This knowledge can be possessed by somebody who is having this kind of quality. So he's talking only about the knowledge, but not associating with any Vyakti yet. But this is talking about the sattvika knowledge, the definition of a sattvika knowledge. Now, for the avibhaktam, that is, even though is there everywhere, because of the locus, that is the adhisthana, there is no change in him. For that, there is a Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is there. Raghavan Swami refers to that. Om nas stanato api parasya ubhayalingam sarvatrihi. The ubhayalingam means one is having the sarvaguna parivata. That is, he is having all the complete and full auspicious qualities and having no defects. So even though is there sarvatra, even though is there everywhere in all adhishtanas, everywhere he possesses these two qualities. So the God who is there in everybody, in everything, he is the same, is the question. So basically somebody, or basically this knowledge is called as sattvika knowledge, and the person who has that particular guna will have this Satvika knowledge. That basically, he sees the differences and hierarchy among the jivas and jadas, but with respect to Vishnu, he sees Vishnu as the same, no matter where. So that is the gist of this one. Then the next sloka. Before that, I just want to briefly touch upon the Acharya's, this coming from Padma Purana. Just to give a quick reading. Astitvad bhutanam namabhyah sarvajivapya yavyat. So this astitva, because of the existence, it is called as bhuta. So it's all having this pramana from the Padma Purana. Then he says that why avibhakta means, he says that ekena cha swarupanam praturbhuvati katmanam taratamyena jivanam vedena parasparam. So basically, even though is there in different rupas because of his avatara praturbhuva, there is no change in him, but there is a taratamya amongst the jivas between jiva and jada, and then jada himself. So that is, it is coming from a Padma Purana. Just wanted to mention that. So next sloka is about the Rajasvik Jnana, Rajasva Naja. So there, the sloka is like this: Pratakvena tu yajnanam nana bhavan pratak vidan veti sarveshu bhuteshu tajnanam vidya rajasam. So basically here, there is everything is same like the Satvika knowledge, but only with respect to Vishnu, the knowledge is having doubt. It is not having the complete knowledge. It is having a doubt in that, only in the Vishnu's aspect. So he says that that is in Sarvabhuta, that is all in Jiva and Jada, that is you have Pritakva, that is separate. There, there is difference between this and this Jada and that Jada, and having this difference between this Jivas. All those things, there is an antarbheda, there is a difference, inherent difference between them. All those things, Vishayi Karoti, you are able to understand that. But, and also to explain that, Nana Bhava, meaning, basically, it's clarifying that by saying that Nana Prakara Bhuta Jiva Jada Rupa. Is various kinds of Jivas and Jadas. Then there is Parasparam Bhinnam, there is difference between them, and also there is a Taratamya again between them. That this knowledge, this grasp that, this kind of knowledge grasp that. But Vishnoho Anyatte Yatartamiti Yavata. That is, leaving Vishnu, aside Vishnu, everything it understands as it is. But in terms of Vishnu, that is with respect to Vishnu, what it does is Sandhikdaya. There is a doubt in the Bhagavat Swarupa, in the nature of God. He is having doubt. This knowledge having doubt. So that knowledge is called as Rajasa. In this, the interesting thing is, what differentiates from the Satvika is the particle tu. It says that tu shabdhena vayam artho grahya. That is, by this tu, this particular word, the difference between Rajasika and Tamasika is denoted. Next is the Tamasa. The sloka is Yattu Krishnavate Ekasmin Karye Saktam Ahaitukam Atatpartam Artavate Alpamcha Tat Tamasam Udahranam. So in this, the two key things to understand is, we need to understand what is a Karya and Krishnavate. Karya means, it is meaning a samsarina. That means one who is in the samsara, and then he is trying to get emancipated. So that is why he's the effect, basically. He's the effect, and he's a samsarin, and he's trying to go to moksha. Krishna, general meaning is, it's complete whole. So here Krishna means Brahma. Brahma means again is complete. Jagat also is a very big universe, so it's the complete whole thing. So the Krishna word can refer to either Brahman or the world. Now, the three types of meaning we can derive. That is, again Karya means again in this Jiva, Krishnavate, Ekasmin Karya, in this one Jiva, Krishnavate. That is, you, like how Brahma he understands himself to be Brahma, how he understands, like that, in this jiva, the jiva is trying to understand that Brahma as him. So that basically it is to mean that this jiva is identifying himself with Brahman and thinking that he is that Brahman. This is one level of meaning. Another meaning is ekasmin kari. In this jiva, the jiva is thinking Krishna, that is this complete whole universe. That is, in other words, the jiva is thinking that he is this universe. And the third artha is ekasmin karye Krishna. That means there are two different ways to interpret it, but to just say it very simply, this jiva is thinking that he is this entire universe in the sense that he is only one. That is, there is only one eka jiva vada, they say. That is only one jiva. There is only one jiva, like that. I can also mean that he is thinking that it is because of that jiva, this entire world is the effect of one jiva's illusion. So there are two types of meaning there. You can mean anything. So these are called the three things. These three things are not. There is no logic in that. Saktam, that is Saktam means one who is attached to this kind of knowledge. It is ahetuka. It has no reasoning. There is no proper reasoning for this. Why? We can give a simple example. For example, suppose there is a very great scientist. He understands everything about different kinds of materials, about different people, their intelligence, everything. But with respect to God, he is not able to understand it correctly, or he thinks that there is no God at all, or he thinks that I am identifying myself with this Jagat. I am part of this Jagat, something like that. So this kind of reasoning, which is this kind of reasoning is going against the logic. So that is why it is called as ahetukam. That is because it is to say that it is not in line with the Vedas. Ahetukam means it is yukti, logic, without the help of Vedas. It is not correct. Similarly, it is a atatva arthavat. Atatva arthavat means atatva means that which is not there. For example, he is thinking that there is a hair on which is not there in the world, or seeing a flower in the sky. So he is having that kind of knowledge. So one atatva, and also alpam. Alpam means this is full of ignorance, and he thinks that is the knowledge. So all these six things combined is a tamasic knowledge. So if somebody possesses all these six kinds of qualities, I mean, it is a mahatamas, and mahatamas jnana. So like that they say. So basically, sattva rajastama, the jnana is like what I try to explain. This is what is the difference. So Sri Krishna Arpanostu, I just stop here. Thank you. Namaskara. And next is Veena ji will take over next.
So before we move to Veena, there is a small comment that's come in from Anand. The Sattvic knowledge is spiritual insight. Rajasic knowledge is that which is perceived through senses. And Tamas is fanatic. So anybody wants to comment on this? If not, we will move.
Okay, I can very quickly touch upon this. This Sattvic knowledge, spiritual insight, is, I would say, it is in line with that artha. The Rajasic knowledge also, it is, we can say that there is a spiritual insight, because the Sattvic knowledge also, there is a sensory thing is there, because how will you know the difference between the Jada and all? We need the sense, we need the what is that, the Sakshi and all that. So the only difference between Rajasic Sattvic is there is a difference between the knowledge about God. And Tamasic is, as I told, it is like, it is perceived to the senses. There's no, and it is totally wrong knowledge. It's not able to understand anything at all properly, which is not having any reasoning at all. And it is also alpa, very, very little knowledge. But he thinks he has the entire knowledge to himself. That is what is the difference.
Thank you, Prakashji. There is another question that's come from Harish. How does ekasmin karye translate to jiva?
Okay, that's what I was telling. Ekasmin Karye, I am going with the Raghavendra Swami's Vivriti because it condenses everything. I will just read it out and then give my cursory translation. Karya Shabdho Atra Samsarinam Muktatvena Kriyamana Hetutva Jivaparaha. So he says that the Karya Shabdha is basically it's the effect. Why is the effect means is a effect of, as a samsarin, and he's trying to for the mukti, he's trying to get liberated, and in order to do that, he's doing whatever he's doing, and with that hetu, that reason, he is called as jiva. That is why he is called as a jiva. Ekasmin in only one jiva. Ekasmin in this jiva only is the ekasmin is in this jiva. Karya is jiva. Ekasmin in this jiva is in the locative case. I hope I was able to answer that question.
Wonderful. Thank you, says Harish. Okay, we move on to Veenaji.
Just one kind of comment, basically to support the tamasic knowledge. Can I?
Yes, please go for it, Srinivasanji.
Okay, so you just want to, when he says that atatvartavat, and then also like Krishnavat, so he is relating to that Jiva and Brahma, about identity, and also like the Mithyatva of Jagat. So it is further supported because when Krishna is talking about Deva Asura Sampath, so in the chapter 16, he says, Asatyam apratishtam te jagadahu anishwaram araspara aparaspara sambhotam kimanya kamahetakam. So that is a kind of, you have to look at this one in that light. Then it makes sense.
Yeah, very, very nice, GV. And also when you said that, I remembered Aham Bogi, Aham Kartha, all those things. We had to take all those things.
And also in a related note, I just wanted to come in with the Rajasic knowledge, Prakashji, where you said this guy who has got Rajasic knowledge, he understands the universe as how it is functioning and so on. But the underlying conscious principle that regulates it, he doesn't have a full understanding of that particular being. Either he may think that he is different in various avatars, or that he may think that he may not be doing anything constructive in the construction of the universe and so on. I just remembered few Upanishad statements, and of course Isha Upanishad's Mangalacharana, the Shanti mantra itself, Purna Madaha Purnamidam Purnat Purna Mudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Again, that Purna, that Brahman is Purna everywhere. That idea should be fixed hard into our head. Anybody who thinks that the avatars of Vishnu is different, he is doomed. And the same Katha Upanishad also, as we have done it before, says na iha nana asti kinchana. And then it says, he who thinks that there is difference between the various Mula Rupa and Avatara Rupa, or if there is a difference between the qualities that are inherent in Brahman, that fellow falls down, like how waterfalls come from when there is a heavy rain and the water falls down from the peak and rushes down to the base, like that he's going to go into Andhatama. So Prakashji, here I just wanted to come in to ask, so those individuals who have a Rajasic knowledge, if you look at the verse from Katha Upanishad, they actually go to Andhatamas. Even in Ishavasya Upanishad, he says those who have avidya, those who have wrong knowledge about Brahman also go to the Andhatamas. So do we then take that the Rajasic fellows who have that kind of perception of Paramatma actually go to Andhatamas rather than becoming Nitya Samsarins?
Good question, and I'm not able to answer it in a perfect way, but I will try one quick way. What is Nitya Samsari? Nitya Samsari also is one who is having very Rajasic quality. So he is having doubt, but sometimes he believes that all these things what you said, and sometimes he doesn't believe that. So that is why he's alternating between this and that, because he's not able to have a firm conclusion that Vishnu is so that is intrinsically the same in all his avatars, in gunas, in names, everything. So that kind of firm and firm conclusion and then conviction is not there with the Rajasic knowledge or Rajasic person. So he kinds of accepts it, sometimes he kind of doesn't accept it. So that is why he's alternating between that. But he's not fully coming to a point, I mean, I understand the Shruti Vakya, even if you have slightest doubt, but I think that then we have to define that Rajasvik Nitya Samsarin, where if he had some Satvik Guna, he would have gone to moksha, right? So that is where I have the, that's where I think.
Thank you, Prakash ji. Yeah. So if there are no further questions, over to Veena ji.
Yeah, Hari Om. Yeah, the topic of karma has been covered extensively in chapters 3, Karma Yoga, 4, Jnana Yoga, and 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So in 4, 16, 17, and 18, Krishna explains what is karma, akarma, and vikarma. So the precise understanding of karma is very subtle, and it should be known that right karma, that is karma, is different from both non-doing, that is akarma, and wrongdoing, that is vikarma. So it should also be realized that all these karmas function at Lord's will. So depending on how the prescribed duties are performed, so the Krishna explains in this chapter about Satvik karma, Rajasic karma, and Tamasic karma. First, Niyatam Sangarahitam Aragadveshata Apala Prepsuna Kritam Yattat Karma Satvikam Uchate. Niyatam, prescribed duty. Sangarahitam, not having attachment or abhimana. Aragadveshata, living the desire in getting fame, name, etc. and living hatred when criticized. Apala Prepsuna Kritam, without craving for acquiring fruits. Yattat karma, such karmas, satvikam uchate, are satvika karmas. A person who keeps in mind while doing prescribed duties that naham karta, hari karta is jnani. So the true karma is the another name for dharma, that is satvika karma. The rajasika karma, yattu kama ipsuna va sahankarena bahula ayasam punah kriyate tat karma rajasam udahrutam. Yattu, that karma, kamepsuna, which is done with a desire of phala or fruit, va, otherwise, sahankarena, performed with the ego that I am the doer, bahula ayasam punah kriyate, which is done with much physical strain, tat karma, that karma, rajasam udahurtam, is termed as rajasa karma. Tamasika karma, anubandham kshayam himsa paurusham cha anveksha tat tamasam uchate. The karmas performed without having an understanding of one's own capability, without understanding the consequences of action, with deep desire, in urgency, with ego, hatred, forgetting the Supreme Lord, with the intent to destroy the society, are tamasic in nature. Even if the action is good, but done with a bad intent, is tamasic in nature. So next slide, please. Yeah. I have tried to explain these tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic karmas with an example. Next, with an example. Once upon a time, there lived 3 friends. Out of nowhere, a situation did arise wherein the cows in the society began to fall ill and needed to be looked after. All the 3 friends decided that they would each construct a Goshala. Friend A did all the necessary paperwork, obtained the necessary approvals, and ensured that the Goshala was constructed. He toiled very hard, visited all the nearby villages, and convinced the owners of the cows to send their cows to the Goshala. In a short while, there was a full team in place for managing the Goshala. He returned to his day job, visiting the Goshala once a while to provide any assistance as needed. So he doesn't have any attachment to the Goshala. Friend B knew the amount of effort needed to construct the Goshala. He had the Goshala constructed very well and in a short time and opened with a grand opening ceremony. He had a plan to recover the investment by setting up an elaborate marketing and sales project for all the products of the Goshala and soon became rich. Whereas friend C had scant idea of what it would take to build a Goshala, he somehow had the project completed along with the monetization plan for the products of the Goshala. To maximize his profits, he kept only the healthy cows and sent the weak and the ill ones to either other Goshalas or to the slaughterhouses. Next, yeah. So my take-home message from these three shlokas is the action which we perform should enhance our knowledge, and we should continue to do the actions with this enhanced knowledge. Yeah. The way we should perform our duties is best illustrated through this wonderful composition of Srimad Acharya in Dwadasha Stotra. Kuru bhungshva cha karma nijam niyatam paharipada vinamra dhiya satatam harireva paro harireva guru harireva jagat pitrumatru gatihi. Do your duty, take life as it comes, and be content with what you have. Submit all your actions to him with the knowledge of his supremacy without aspiration for any fruits. Be in constant contemplation of the feet of the Lord. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Over to Ajit ji.
Yeah, fantastic, Veena ji. So there is a comment from Anand. Sattvic karma equals Gita's doctrine of karma yoga. Thank you, Anand. So over to Ajit.
Thank you. Thanks, Madhu. Can I have the next slide, please? So I've been asked to talk about the three shlokas which talk about the Kartha. We've heard about the Jnana, and we've heard about the karma, and now we're talking about the third component in this action cycle, that's the Kartha. So the 26th shloka goes as Mukta Sangho Anaham Vadi Trityu Sahasam Anvitaha Siddhya Siddhyor Nirvikaram Karta Satvika Uchyate. So here it says that the performer is said to be in the mode of goodness when he or she is free from egotism and attachment, endowed with enthusiasm, determination, and remains equipoised in whether the success or failure. The next slide, please. Thanks. So, so the key thing here is that the Sattvic doers, they are Mukta Sangha. That means they do not try to cling on to things in worldly attachment, but it doesn't mean that they are not interested in these things when they do that. But in fact, they do their work with a lot of utsaha or zeal, and they also have a lot of dhriti or a strong resolve in their endeavors. And they are able to work tirelessly to fulfill their motives, and they may accomplish great things, but they are free from egotism. So I had heard a good example for this was from a medical background. It's an example that you think about the nurses on the wards. So the nurses, they come to the hospitals where they know that you have births happening and there are deaths happening. So you have positives and negatives happening. And when they look after their patients, they come look after each of their patients with a lot of ulsaha and with steady dhriti. But they don't think when the patient gets better, they don't think that that's them who has made the patient get better, because it's somebody else who has prescribed the necessary treatment for this person. And at the same time, when the person doesn't do well, then they don't get too upset that it's something that they have done, that the patient hasn't got better. So it just shows that a person who is in a sattvic mode tends to stay detached from all these and just continues to do their duty in the right way, and making sure that they don't get attached to any of the outcomes from their duty. So I thought that was quite a good example. So if you could have the next slide, please. So in this one, Krishna is talking about the Rajasic Kartha. So it goes as Ragi Karma Phala Prepsur, Lubdho Hinsatmago Suchihi, Harsha Shokanvitaha Karta, Rajasa Parikirtitaha. So the translation for the shloka goes, the performer is considered in the mode of passion when he or she craves the fruits for the work, is covetous, violent-natured, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow. The next slide, please. So while the sattvic workers are motivated by the desire for spiritual growth, the Rajasic workers here are deeply ambitious for their materialistic enhancement, as we saw in the previous examples of the Goshala, somebody wanting to benefit monetarily from their actions. And here the Karta is agitated with the desires of the mind and senses. They do not possess the purity of intention, and they're convinced that the pleasure they seek is available in the things of the world. So they're never satisfied with whatever comes their way, and they are always greedy for more, or labdaha. And when they see others succeeding or enjoying more, they become hinsatmagaha, which is trying to cause injury to other people. And to fulfill their ends, they sometimes sacrifice their morality and becomes asuchiha, or impure. And when their desires are fulfilled, they become elated. And when they are daunted, they get dejected. So they get quite attached to the outcomes of their actions. And in this way, their lives becomes a harsha shoga anvitaha, a mixture of delights and sorrows. The next slide, please. So in this one, Krishna then talks about the last group of doers, or the tamasics. Ayukta prakrita stabdha, shatho naiskritiko saha, vishadhi dirga sutricha karta tamasa uchyate. So the translation is, a performer in the mode of ignorance is one who is undisciplined, vulgar, stubborn, deceitful, slothful, or sluggish, or lazy, despondent, and is a procrastinator. The next slide, please. Thank you. So here Krishna gives a description of the tamasic workers. Their mind is blotted with negative obsessions, and they are undisciplined. So the mind tends to wander. They're not focused on things. It tends to jump around quite a lot. The scriptures give the injunctions regarding what is proper and improper behavior, but the workers in this mode of ignorance, they're obstinate in their views. They don't listen to what's being told. They just go ahead, and they just, like a bull in a china shop, they just go through and push their views through, and they don't listen to reason there. And they're often very shataha, or very cunning, and dishonest in their ways. And because of all these, their actions are quite vulgar, because they don't believe in controlling their animal instinct. And though they have duties to perform, they see the effort as laborious, quite painful, and as a result, they're quite sluggish, or slothful, or alasa in how they do things, and they keep procrastinating. And on reflection, when we look at this, we can see that a lot of these touch into some of our actions, and this is how most of us, or at least I feel that this is some things that I find in my own way of doing, is that you tend to procrastinate, think about things too much, and push things away for later times. So you can see that these negative attributes tend to then have an impact on how we do things and the outcomes of what we achieve. So there's this shloka from the Srimad Bhagavatam where it describes the types of performers of actions. It says, the worker who is attached to sattvic in nature, the one who is excessively attached to action, and its results is rajasic. One who is devoid of discrimination is tamasic, but the worker who surrendered to me is transcendental to the three modes. So I think here the take-home message for me is that we just have to continue to make sure that we don't get attached to these actions, don't try and think about the outcomes, think about the benefits from these, and most importantly is to not be in a tamasic frame of mind where we are dishonest in our dealings, we are allowing our instincts or our animal instincts to take over our reasoning and to be procrastinating. So we just have to make sure that we continue to do things in the right way. Hari Om. Thank you.
Wonderful, Ajit Di. We move directly to Padmajaji.
Gurubhyo Namaha, Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Srimadananda Tirtha Bhagavad Padacharya Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you, Ajit Ji. Namaskara to everyone. In Katha Upanishad, verses 1.33 and 1.34, in verses 1.33 and 1.34, Emma explains Nachiketa about intellect, taking chariot as an example, as you see in the picture on the screen. Yama says, view body as a chariot, know the self as the rider in the chariot, know intelligence as the charioteer, know the mind as the reins. 5 horses or 5 indriyas required to gain knowledge of the external world. The objects which they perceive, the way the self, that is Atma, in association with body, mind, and senses, is the experiencer of pleasure and pain. The charioteer must ensure the horses stay on right path, make right turns, halt when needed, and speed when required. For that, the charioteer needs to have the reins in his or her hands with full control. If the reins are let loose, the horses run around wherever they feel like and reach some destination, but not the required destination. Yama further says, those who know how to control the reins will be able to steer his senses effectively like the good horses. So intellect, mind, and sense organs will drive and direct the soul towards Shreyas or prayers. Through Shreyas, soul will have Bhagavad Sakshatkara, cross Virija Nadi, and finally attain moksha. Through prayers, soul will indulge in materialistic pleasure and will get into the cycles of samsara. So from this is the small introduction about intellect from Katha Upanishad. From verse 29 to 35, which I will be dealing with, Lord Krishna explains Arjuna about the intelligence and steadfastness in detail. Verse 29. Buddhir Vedam Dritesh Chaiva Gunatas Trividam Shrinu Rochayamanam Aseshena Pritatvena Dhananjaya. The lit translation. Hear now, O Arjun, of the distinction of intellect and determination, according to the 3 modes of material nature, as I described them in detail. So, verse 30. Pravrittim cha nivartim cha karya karye baya baye bandham moksham cha yaveti buddhihi sapartha satvikihi. Translation. The intellect is said to be in the nature of goodness, O Parth, when it understands what is proper and improper action, what is duty and non-duty, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating. Verse 31. Yaya dharmam adharmam cha karyam cha akaryam eva cha ayata vat prajanati buddhihi sapartha rajasi. The intellect, translation, the intellect is considered in the mode of passion when it is confused between righteousness and unrighteousness and cannot distinguish between right and wrong conduct, O Parth. So the summary of all these 4 shlokas, as I have understood, in Shloka 29, Lord Krishna says, O Dhananjaya, following Sattva, Rajas, and Tamogunas, for Buddhi is of 3 kinds and there is mutual differences between them. For steadiness of mind also there exist 3 mutually different kinds, and I'll be explaining to you in detail and distinctly. Hear them without any balance or residue. He starts with Sattvic Buddhi, then Rajasic and Tamasic. So Sattvic Buddhi goes like this. O Arjuna, son of Kunti, involvement in dharmic activities and dharmas are the karanas for samsara. Being absent from adharmic activities and dharmas are the reason for attainment of mukti. For them, the karyas which have to be done and which have to be avoided, fearing in doing improper and adharmic activities, and boldness in doing proper dharmic activities, being bound in samsara and getting released from samsara, that person who understands these by buddhi, such buddhi is called sattvic buddhi. Rajasic buddhi, Krishna says, son of Partha, virtue and sin, that which is eligible to be done and that which is not eligible to be done, by which buddhi always understands against actual facts or understands a little as per actual facts and a little contrary or contradictory to actual facts. Such a type of buddhi is called Rajasa buddhi. And O Arjuna, this is for tamasic buddhi. Krishna says, O Arjuna, son of Pritha, that buddhi by which one thinks sin is virtue, not only that, being covered by ignorance, understands all objects in a negative or opposite way from the real state. For example, understands Satya as Asatya, when Paramatma always exists, understand that there is no God, understands dependent entities as independent, understands those which exist for long duration as existing for a second only. Such buddhi is called tamasa buddhi. Now over to Sloka 32, where he talks about three types of dhriti. Adharmam dharmam itiyam manyate tamasavrata sarvartan viparitanischa buddhihi sa partha tamasi. The translation in English, that intellect which is shrouded in darkness, imagining irreligion to be religion and perceiving untruth to be the truth, is of the nature of ignorance, O Parth. Now, verse 33, Tritiya yaya darayate manaha pranendriya kriyaha yogena avyabhicharinya dhriti sa partha satvikihi. Verse 34, yaya tu dharma kamarthan dhritiya darayate arjuna prasangena phala kankshi dritisa partha rajasi. Verse 35, yaya swapnam bayam shok. I'm sorry, I have to tell the translation for the verse 34. The steadfast willpower by which one holds on to duty, pleasures and wealth out of attachment and desire for rewards. O Arjuna, this, O Arjuna, is the determination in mode of passion. Now, verse 35, Yaya swapnam bayam shokam vishadam madam evacha na vimuchati durmeda dritisa partha tamasi. The translation is, that unintelligent resolve is said to be determination in the mode of ignorance, O Arjun, in which one does not give up dreaming, fearing, grieving, despair, and conceit. So my understanding of these three verses from 33 to 35, Lord Krishna says, O Arjuna, son of Pritha, coupled with Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, slipping out from the mandates of Shastras, by which boldness, the mind, the pranas, gnana, and karmendriyas, their respective operations are dragged out without restoring to bad or wrong path. Such boldness or steadiness in mind is called Satviki Dhruti. O Arjuna, known for doing pure karmas, by which boldness or steadiness of mind support dharma, artha, kama, and not moksha, due to strong affinity or friendship in his karmas, expects phala or desires in all his karmas. That boldness or steadiness of mind is called Rajasi Dhruti. The last one, Tamasic Dhruti. O Arjuna, son of Kunti, those who have bad, crooked, and wicked buddhi like Kamsa and Kumbhakarna, by just boldness or steadiness of mind, indulge in unlimited sleep, which is prohibited in Shastras. Fear, miseries, wavering mind, haughtiness, hatred towards Bhagavan do not leave from the basic root. Such steadiness in mind is called Tamasic Dhruti. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Over to Kamalaji.
Thank you, Padmajaji. Over to you, Kamala.
Gurubhyo Namaha, Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Srimad Ananda Tirtha Bhagavad Padacharya Gurubhyo Namaha. I am going to deal with happiness, that is Sukha, is of three types. Satvika Sukha, Rajasa Sukha, and Tamasa Sukha. 36, 37 deals with Satvika Sukha, 38 deals with Rajasa, and 39 Tamasa. Now 36 tells us, Sukam Tvidanim Trividam Shrunume Varata Rishabha, Abhyasad Ramate Yatra Dukkantam Cha Nigacchati. The translation: Hear me, Arjuna, of the three kinds of happiness in which the embodied soul rejoices and can never reach the end of all suffering. My understanding of this sloka is, Sukha or happiness is of three kinds. O Arjuna, you are supreme person in the dynasty of Bharata. Please hear about three kinds of happiness, Sukha, from me now itself. Sukha, though enjoyed for a long duration, again and again, that person feels happy. Destruction of unhappiness, misery takes place from the root. Such Sukha is called Satvika Sukha. Sloka 37. Yatadagre visham iva pariname mrutopamam tat sukam satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. That's number one. That sukha, to start with in the beginning, is like poison. That means this has to be achieved with great strain and efforts. Number two, but in the end, it would be like the nectar by the anugraha of Paramatma, by the clarified proper buddhi. That sukha is called Satvika Sukha. Moksha Sukha is eternal, which is Nitya, and Muktas there never returns to samsara, and explained in the final Brahma Sutra, number 564, Om Anavirti Sabdat Hom. A very important, astonishing beauty can be seen by a devotee here in this sloka is, it indicates about the Sarvamula works of Srimad Acharya, the greatest Vedantic philosopher, Avatara of Sri Vayu Bhagavan. On his works, tikas, tippanis by great jnanis are available. One has to read them constantly, and it may be difficult work, but the result is permanent sukha in moksha. Sarvamula works numbering works 37 will lead to a devotee to moksha, and there is no other way, and there is no doubt about it. 38. Vishendriya samyoga yattat agre mritopamam pariname visham ivatat sukam rajasa samritim. The translation: happiness is said to be the mode of passion. When it is derived from the contact of the senses with their objects, such happiness is like nectar at first but poison at the end. My understanding. Rajasa Sukha, which is explained already in chapter 5, sloka 22, that goes as, Hi samsparshaja boga dukkaha yonaya evate adyantavantaha kaunteyana teshu ramate butaha. The pleasures that arise from contact with the sense objects, though appearing as enjoyable to worldly minded people, are verily a source of misery. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, so the wise do not delight in them. Same explained in 1838. Sound, smell, touch, etc. are the Vishayas, and they come into contact with ear, nose, skin, etc. And due to such Vishaya, Anubhava, that is Sukha, happens, which means worldly temporary happiness, and they will be like nectar to start with, but in the end, it will be like poison, which means will bring agonies and miseries. Since they prevent the person from doing sadhanas to attain eternal happiness, because they act as obstacles to know about the Creator and His Mahimas. That is the type. This type of sukha is called Rajasa Sukha. Now, 39th sloka. Natad asti 39 sloka. Yadagre chanu bande cha sukam mohanam atmanaha nitralasya pramadotam tat tamasam udiratam. The meaning, that happiness which covers the nature of the self from beginning to end, and which is derived from sleep, indolence, and negligence, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. My understanding, that happiness in the beginning as well as in the end also deludes the person and makes him to be bound and attracted. Sleep, laziness, deluded jnana, and buddhi to adharmic activities that sukha happiness to those factors is called tamasa sukha. Since all jivas are bound by these three qualities, the division of jivas as the threefold is justified and proved as sattvikas, rajasas, and tamasas. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Over to Suresh ji.
Thank you very much, Kamalaji. Before we go, there is a very brief comments and I'll just go through it. Anand has commented, Dharma, Artha, Kama are obtained by Rajasa Dhriti, Moksha with Satvika Dhriti. Thank you very much. So over to you, Suresh.
Thanks, Mother. Thanks, everyone. So we come to 1840, which is Natadasti Pruthivyam va Divi Deveshu va Punaha Sattvam Prakritijair Muktam Yadebis Syat Tribhir Gunaihi. So Krishna says that neither in this Swarga, nowhere in either of the worlds is there anyone who is devoid of the influence of these three gunas. This is a good transition shloka from what we're discussing here to what we will take in part C. And it addresses some fundamental questions about Chaturvarnya and how jivas are classified. So what we will do is, Madhuji, if you can just quickly go through the animation, we will deal this in the next part as it will relate to duties assigned as well. So if the next slide, this slide is basically the classification of non-mukta jivas, and then which is devatas. In the next slide, it is just the classification of the manavas and a tabular illustration of how to understand it better and some meanings of the four varnas. And this is what we will deal in the next part. On the next slide are a couple of contextual shlokas that we can also pick up when we deal with it. So with that, we have covered what we wanted to from a shloka perspectives, and quiz, over to Pragnesh Ji for a quiz.
Would I be able to share? Thank you very much, Krishna Arpanamastu.
Yes,
could
sir.
I share my slides?
Pragnesh, I made you host, so you
Thank
can,
you.
I don't know
Thank
whether,
you.
yeah, you can share your slides.
Thank you. Let us see if it works. So are you able to see?
Yeah,
So
we can see
as usual, there are 10 slides. This is just an introduction. In the interest of time, we will only give 30 seconds per question. That will allow us 30 seconds for discussion. So hopefully we should finish in 10 minutes, giving further 5 minutes for overall discussion. So thank you very much. Madhuji will play the music after I start the first question. Thank you. Music, please. Okay, so I am not sure if there are any answers on the system, but I would go in the interest of answer.
So anybody wants to briefly come in and say what the answer is? According to Sankhya philosophy, the cause of misery is the desire of dash to enjoy dash. So Neeta Kulkarni is the desire. Neeta is saying jiva. Please explain very briefly, Neeta ji. Sense objects. Okay.
Desire of the jiva to enjoy sense objects.
Thank you.
As in exams, we are looking for buzzwords. So you are right, but we want Purush and Prakriti. Sorry. The next one. Lord Krishna is known as Advaya Jnana Tattva. Why? Music, please. Now, I know this is not directly taken from the discourse today, so it may be difficult, but those many of you are very well learned, so I thought let's make it a little difficult. So Lord Krishna is known as Advaya Jnana Tattva based on the following 4 criteria. We know all those. It is Sajatiya Bheda Sunya. That means he is one with similar entities. Vijatiya Bhed Sunya means he is one with all dissimilar entities. Swagad Bheda Sunya means the various parts of his body are non-different from him. And Swayam Siddha means he needs the support of no other entity. Any comments or discussions? I have taken most of the things from Mukundananda's Holy Gita online that most of you have also used to take the necessary copies. Thank you. Am I allowed to proceed?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Now the next remaining the questions, and this is based on the Sloka 20. Sarva bhutesu yenekem bhavamavyam
So you
vazikshate
need, yeah.
vibhakta vibhaktesu tajjanam viddati satrikam. Which type of knowledge divides human society? This is very contemporary. And in which sloka this is discussed? Any answers coming?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat. If in the chat box, if anybody wants to go for it, otherwise Pragnesh release the answers.
Thank you.
Odita ji is saying 21.
Let's see whether she is right. She is as usual. Thank you. So Rajasic knowledge divides human society, and this is discussed in Sloka 21. We are talking about man versus society, but there are other types of conflict, and the worst which we are discussing through our learned scriptures is actually man versus himself. Bhagavad Gita, as we know, is a manual for life, and it tells us what we have to deal with every day. It is contemporary, written by Sansari, spoken by Sansari, and listened by Sansari, and practiced all learned by Sansaris. Thank you. The sloka is here. I won't bother to recite because we have already done that earlier. Next one. What are the constituents of action in mode of goodness? Usually the pictures are giving some hints also.
So
any answers coming through?
There's an answer. No, not yet.
Okay, well, we will move to the answer then. The following are the constituents of action in mode of goodness. Some answers have come.
Sangarahitam.
Yeah. Indirectly, yes. But according to what we have learned today, and if I give you further answer, it is in the sloka 23rd, we learned that niyatam sangarahitam. Yes, that's what you mentioned. Sangarahitam krutam apala presuna karma yasati kibuchate. And Buddha says the root of suffering is attachment. So here they say that we need to do it with according to the scriptures, according to the manual we discussed. It should be free from attachment, Iswar Arpana Bhava, and Prasada Buddhi, and without the desire of rewards. Ma par kalesu kadachana. Please fill the blanks. We have learned the sloka 26 to 28, and in fact, if I am correct, Prakashji also mentioned it at the bottom. Please fill in the blanks. The first three are relatively easy. I am giving you the hint. If you go by the order of all the slokas we have learned, some answer is coming.
So Anand is saying Sat, Rajas, Tamas, and knowledge.
Okay, the first three we would accept. The last is the answer I gave in my response to the chat.
Go ahead, release answers, Pragnesh.
Thank you. So the worker who is detached is sattvic in nature. The one who is excessively attached to action and its results is rajasic. One who is devoid of discrimination is tamasic. But the worker who is surrendered to me is transcendental to the three modes. So we have to be surrendered, and this is given also in Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why I have given you this 18 parts of Bhagavatam. I won't read it in the interest of time. We are halfway through the quiz already. Which are the two factors? This has been discussed by Padmajaji and Kamlaji. So any answers? Yes, there is an answer. Maybe it was for the previous one. Yes, thank you. Thank you. That was for the earlier one. Yes. Anyone answers? Ratha Kalpana.
30 says 30.
Okay. Let's see. Intellect and determination. Sloka 29. Dhriti keeps coming a lot of time. So Dhriti in Sloka 29. And let's look at this one. Buddha Vevadam and Dhutaishchaiva. So intellect and determination are the two important factors for quantity and quality of work. We also learned in Sanskrit, Prayatne Siddhanti Karyani na Manorathai Nahi Suptasya Siyasya Praveshanti Mrukhe Mruga. Our teachers in school days used to say that you have to do homework because even the lion has to go hunting and the deers don't come to lion. Question 7. What are the three kinds of determination? How do one develop those? In which sloka Lord Krishna describes those? I have given the answer by the three figures, just to give the hint. I know music is playing, but maybe everybody may not be able to hear because I am not able to hear it well. Okay.
So the answers have come as 33, 34, and 35.
Okay. Let us see. The answer is actually
Nita Shushruta saying Satvik, Rajasic, and Tamasic.
okay. Let's see the answer then. So subdued senses, disciplined life airs, prana, and controlled mind. And that you achieve through the practice of yoga, the Ashtanga yoga. I have given the picture of Yam, Niyam, Asana, Ara, Pran, Pratyar, Dhyan, Dharana, and Samadhi, the 8 according to the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and it is in the Sloka 33. That is how you achieve this. And prana, I had given the prana picture. If you go back, we have learned that prana lot of time, and the controlled mind and the controlled senses. Thank you. Question 8. What is the characteristic of sattvic happiness? We have learned this lot in Kathopanishad, Sreya and Preya.
Yeah, some chat messages have come through. Poison and nectar.
Yeah.
Verse
Very
37.
good example. Poison and nectar, very good example. In the Holy Gita by Mukundanand, he had given very good example of amla, the gooseberry. As they say in Ayurveda, amla is the best anti-aging, and Triphala is the best Ausada. Amla is Vayasthapaka and Triphala is Ausad. So yes, the example of Amla fits very well because it tastes bitter initially, but later on it tastes sweeter. So answer is absolutely in 37, and we have learned this, as I said, in Kathopanishad, and I will quote the Kathopanishad stanza as well. We have learned this. Madhuji has taken us through this in great detail. Thank you. Only two more remaining. What are the characteristics of tamasic happiness? You can see even the red color hurts the eyes, as you see. And in which sloka, Sureshji had given a very nice description of all the various things, including food and other things, characteristic. Any?
Yeah. So one chat comment has come through. Stupidity. So two stupidities from Anand. Stupidity, and then Nita and Sushut says cloud's mind. Materialistic happiness, Narayanan.
There was a mention about
Sloka is 39.
There was mention about Kumbhakarna. Sleep, indolence, and negligence. And here they say inertia. Thank you. And the last one. So these are the three: sleep, indolence, and negligence. And that is also mentioned in Sloka 39. Nindra, Alasya, Pramad. I used to run International School of Pramad Yoga before I wanted to took on to this Vedas. And last, please share the common predominance of the three modes of gunas. Where do they normally reside? What is their habitat, normal? In Swiss local, Lord Krishna describes those. The picture does give hint.
Okay, so in the chat box, there is an answer saying verse 40 from Anand. And Deval Bagal quote says all.
Thank you. You are right. You are
Prithvi,
right.
Nita and Shushruth.
Yes, correct. All are correct to various extent. So Sattva normally stays in celestial abodes, Rajas on the earth, and Tamas in the nether regions. And it is given in Sloka 40. So by common sense, as my questions progressed, some people got the hint that the next and the last was 40. So here again, the three lokas with the 14 bhuvanas are mentioned. And here the answer is given here. So thank you very much. I know the quiz today was not straightforward, but
that was excellent quiz. Pragnesh, if you want to sign off from your laptop and then we go back.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Over to you, Suresh.
Thank you. Thanks, Pragnesh. Thanks to everybody. Thanks, Madhuji, for managing the slides and taking through the session. So with that, we come to the end of the session. There is a residual sorry.
I have a question again. I go back to my first question.
Yeah, please.
Madhuji and for Sureshji, I can understand to transcend Rajasic and Tamasic gunas. We have heard so much about Satvika gunas. Why should one transcend a Satvika guna?
Madhu, do you want to take it?
Yeah, I could. So I think Anand, your answer there is in the Katha Upanishad verse that Padmajaji was recited. Atmanam ratinam viddhi, shariram ratamevata, indriya nayanaku, atma vishanteshu gocharan, atma indriya manoyuktam bhukte riti ahuhur manishinaha. The last line of that verse, atma indriya manoyuktam. So with the body, And with all the Satvika nature that Krishna is explaining to us, that Satvika mind, Satvika karma, Satvika buddhi, Satvika intellect, and so on, we can follow our direction to Shreyas. We can follow our direction to Paramatma. Okay. So in that sense, the materialist, the material mode influence Satvika buddhi, Satvika mana, Satvika intelligence, and so on. They will take us towards Paroksha Jnana. All that you can get only is up to a certain point. You can only get Paroksha Jnana with your body. But then beyond that, you have to go Aparoksha Jnana, and you have to go beyond your body, right? You have to have the Atma Shakshatkara has to happen, where the Atman itself has an Aparoksha Jnana of its own self-realization and God realization. So that Aparoksha Jnana and Sakshatkara is something that happens at the Jiva level, does not happen at the material level. So the Shreyas will take us only to a certain point. So that is one Atma Indriya Manoktam Bhokte Riti Ahur Manishinaha. And Bannanji again would say at that point, but we have to go beyond that Satvika mode to Shreyas, because we have to go to Atma Indriya Manoyuktam. That is your Atma with its own eternal Indriyas experiences its own, it has its own self-realization, and also it has Bimba Sakshatkara of the Paramatma. So that is beyond the Satvika Buddhi. So that is how I see it in that context as to how we should go beyond Satvika Buddhi. You're right in the sense that up to a certain point, we have to use our Satvika Buddhi to go towards Shreyas. And the Shreyas also is only to a certain point. Beyond that, we have to go non-material. We have to open our third eye, as is described by Bannanji again frequently. Open your third eye, and that is beyond, that is non-material. So it is non-Suddha, that is non-Satvika guna of material mode. That is how I see. So anybody wants to come in here?
May I add, please?
Yeah, sure.
Please go
We
ahead.
have discussed earlier example of vaulting pole in the Olympics. In high jump, they use the long flexible pole to make the jump, but as they are reaching the height, they throw the pole away, then only they can cross the barrier. So that is an example that I feel is applicable here. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Pragnesh,
Can I, yeah, it's Neeta here.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think the shloka that comes to mind is the chapter 14, verse 20, where Krishna is describing the transcendent to beyond the gunas. Here, the Bannanji's lecture explains the sukshma, the same thing that Madhuji has explained just now is the sukshma sattva and the stula sattva. That what we have to get rid of is or go beyond is the stula sattva. That is attached to the material part of the world, and that's exactly what Madhuji was explaining. That leads us to the knowledge of the world and understanding that part of the sattva part, and the sukshma is of the jiva, the sattvic nature of the jiva, and that will go to when the linga sharira goes. So as long as linga sharira is, the material sattvic nature is there, if that makes sense. So that's all I wanted to say.
I think I get the point there. I think even sattva is a part of material mode. Besides rajasa and tamasa, sattva is also part of prakriti. So I get an understanding here that we should get rid of all the material modes to be in a spiritual mode. Is that what is being explained here?
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? Getting the material, rid of the material world, but of course we can't get rid of the jiva swabhava. It's there, it's anadi, isn't it?
So I think
I agree. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry,
so very similar to the example that Pragnesh ji gave. I just want to give an example of a boat, and you cross the ocean. So the boat is like your sattva guna, and use that sattva guna and cross this ocean called samsara. But then after you cross the samsara, you leave the sattva guna, and then you go on to the other side, transempirical side. So view it like that. So there are two types of guna traya vibhaga, isn't it? Here one is the materialistic gunas, which is the sattva rajas tamas of the material world, which comes from Shri Bhu Durga, which comes from the Mula Prakriti. Then, of course, certain schools of Vedanta consider even among the jivas, there is a overarching classifications of Sattvika jivas, Rajasika jivas, and Tamasika jivas. The Satvika Jivas are the ones that eventually go towards Shreyas and use that pole vaulting as Pragnesh was talking about. Those are the Satvika ones. Whereas the Rajasika ones, they are just constantly running only with the pole vault, but they are not jumping over to the other side. They are constantly in the samsara. And the third ones are, they actually use the pole and dig themselves into the deep pits. So they go to the tamas. So that's another classification. That's one system of Vedanta that views it that way. Not all schools of Vedanta prescribe to that kind of a view. So 2 gunas, we should not confuse with these 2 gunas. One set of gunas works for the material world, and then there is the other types of gunas that Vedas talk about various types of jivas. So here, when I presume when Anand is talking about Satvika, we are talking about the material Satvikas, and roughly there is a correlation between a Satvika jiva having a Linga Sharira with predominantly Satvika material gunas.
Yep. No, thanks, Madhuji. I mean, I think this will also, we'll touch upon this again in the next, the part C as well. And maybe just to add, there is the Swarupa Bhuta Parinama and Antakarna Parinama, that's 17.3 when Krishna says Yoyet Shraddha Saeva Saha. So it's the Antakarna Parinama, and that's how I was thinking about. That's what we are talking, the material, the effect of the Jada Prakriti, which is what we have to transcend. There is an inherent nature of the gunas, maybe of the jiva itself, as you were saying. And those were the few slides that we perhaps skipped. And of course, that's only accepted by some schools of thought. But we'll touch upon that maybe next part, and that will be good segue from part B to part C, where we can just touch upon 1840 again and then go into the remaining part of chapter 18. Hope that answers the question. I think we are just around 7, 8, 10 minutes above time. With that, if there are no further questions, Madhuji, is it okay to close today's session?
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So, Suresh, if you want to recite Omkara, and then we close today's session.
Yeah, so thank you all. We will close today's session with a small prayer to, and then we will say Omkara and close the session. Om Matar me Matarishwan Pitalatula Guru Bhratrarishtabta Bandho Swamin Sarvantaratman Najara Jaraita Janma Mrityamayanam Govinde Dehi Bhaktim Bhavati Cha Bhagavan Urjitam Nirnimittam Nirvyajyam Nishchalam Sadgunagana Brahatim Shashwati Mashudeva. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all.
Wonderful. So next Sunday, we carry on with our Isha Upanishad, 17th verse, the second half of the 17th verse, and we'll start making a progress into the 18th verse. And then what we will do is, the aim here is to synchronize 18th verse of Isha Upanishad with 18th chapter part C, which will follow afterwards. Okay. Hare Krishna. Take care, everyone. See you next Sunday.
Thank you. Bye.